Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Pod-Stash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Pod-Stash. Visit thedankpodstash.com where you'll find our shop, calendar of events, and more. Become a patron or bitbacker and join us in our private Discord server where you'll have access to live shows and post-show Q&As.
Business owners, you can advertise on the Dank Pod-Stash, reach a larger audience, and make more sales. Just email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com for more details.
Welcome, fellow enemies of the state, to episode 39 of Enemy of the State's Dank Pod-Stash. Real quick before we jump in, let me just bring you a special offer from our friend Shane Radliff over at libertyunderattack.com. Shane has an offer. You can take 10% off your order over there by using coupon code DANK10. Shane has books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategies, solutions, and more. Current books are Agora, the second realm book on strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's Vanu, a strategy for self-liberation. And I've seen that he's adding more, so definitely go check that out. He also offers services to new authors throughout the publishing process, including editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook production. That's Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom at libertyunderattack.com. And one more thing before we jump in. Some change-ups here at the Dank Pod-Stash. From this point forward, I'm going to be the only host. Good friend David Ballantyne has decided to step away from the show and take care of some stuff in his life, and it's looking up. It's looking good for him. So nothing negative. He's just got to focus on number one. I'm very appreciative that he was here to start the show with me. Probably, like 8 months ago, something like that. It's been a blast, and hopefully we'll have him on the show, and even if he ever wants to come back, we'll definitely get him back. So best wishes to David in his future endeavors. If you want to help him out, check out blackmarketmemes.threadless.com, or I'm going to post a link for a GoFundMe to help him out in his future endeavors in the show notes in the description. He would really appreciate that. I'd really appreciate you helping out my buddy, and just best of luck to you, man. Love you, dude. And we'll still be in contact and hopefully get you on the show as much as possible. So thanks for an awesome time here on the Pod-Stash. I really appreciate it. That leads to some changes, obviously, with just me here. There are going to be some changes in the way that we do the show, the Patreon. Just a little shake-up in benefits offered and the way we handle things. And I'm also going to be adding a newsletter. I'm going to have a newsletter with announcements for future guests on the show, announcing new special videos and some articles and all kinds of stuff. So be sure to check out our Patreon, which is right there on the overlay if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can go to patreon.com/thedankpodstash. We're also on Bitbacker, and it's bitbacker.io/user/thedankpodstash. Any support for the show, I appreciate greatly. Without you guys, it's hard to keep this going. So, with all that out of the way, let's introduce our guest today for episode 39. Jay, how you doing, man?
Hey, brother, how you doing? Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. I can't believe we haven't had you on the show yet. You've sponsored the show multiple times, and we really appreciate that, getting the word out there about your AnarchoCoffe. Tell us about you. Tell us about your projects, and we'll jump on in here.
Yeah, so I probably like many libertarians or anarcho-capitalists, I probably have voted both on the left and the right. Traditional upbringing, went to public schools, followed the system, right? Did everything I was supposed to do. I think it wasn't until I got my first job where I started to question things like taxes, where, where is all my money that I worked hard for? What is this thing called, SSI, which is Social Security insurance or whatever. That's when I really began to question things. And then, like many libertarians, heard of a guy called Ron Paul early on in 2008 and then in 2012. And, really didn't dive deeply into libertarianism and even the idea of anarchism until this last election, really, because it's just like, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but for me, it's like I'm looking around and what's going on in the world today. It's just crazy, and so that's who I am. And I went to college, accrued a bunch of debt, and just trying to work my way out of that. I felt like the system has really fucked me over. And so just trying to find a way to, what I consider freedom, and freedom can mean anything for anybody. For me, it's financial freedom from the state, and freedom from any type of authoritarian regime.
Yeah.
And it's getting quite scary, the world we live in. And so, that brings me, I guess, to where I am today. And that's why I started AnarchoCoffe, looking around at, a lot of the libertarian stuff. Libertarians really talk about the free market and how the free market's so great. And so let's use that as a tool, and let me use that as a tool to see if I can get myself out of, the financial trouble I am, by following the system. And it's been great. AnarchoCoffe, month one was a success for me. That I've started many businesses. I've always been a lifelong entrepreneur, but you kick tires here and there. You try to find what works for you. And AnarchoCoffe was one that I was passionate about. I love coffee and I love liberty, and put the two together and started selling and connecting with people in the liberty movement. And it's been a hell of a roller coaster, but a good one. So yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man.
Well, I wanted to ask, you said you voted both ways before finding libertarianism, anarchy. Mm-hmm. Would you say you lean more right or left?
I'm definitely more conservative in my ways, just because I was probably, born and raised Catholic, and, had a, family of immigrants. We were taught to, you don't take anything from the state. If you have to, you go out and work 2 jobs, and so this idea of the state's going to provide for you is a joke, really. No, we were just talking before the pre-show. You have to look out for number one, right? And that's you. And it's not to say you don't have to be a dick about it, but if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of others, right? Just like on an airplane, when the plane's going down and the oxygen masks fall, what is the first thing they say is put the oxygen mask on yourself, mm-hmm. and then help somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, help yourself, and then we can raise each other up. And that's really the idea of all of my businesses, is that I have my regular full-time income, but that's really just to sustain the debt that I'm in. And it's like, I wanted to help these other libertarian businesses or podcasts, and I didn't have any extra income. So I was like, what if I could go out and make money and put it back into the liberty movement? And that's what it's really all about, is everything that comes into AnarchoCoffe either goes back out, growing the business or supporting other liberty-minded businesses, right? So we either donate, we advertise on other liberty-minded podcasts, and it's been successful, really has. I was able just to support Remzo Martinez's new book, which I'll be releasing a podcast shortly about. It's what was the name of it? Give me a minute here.
Yeah, sure.
It's how to succeed. Yeah, how to succeed in politics and other forms of devil worship. Great book. I think it's fully funded on Indiegogo. Can't wait to read it. He's a really great guy. I recently got to interview him, and I was able to back the book using capital from AnarchoCoffe.
That's an awesome model for
And
that business.
yeah,
I really like that.
thanks. Yeah, man, it's really like I said, I think if we can keep the money in this movement, whether it's libertarian, liberty-minded, anarcho-capitalists, even some just pure anarchists, we can suffocate the state. I truly believe that, right? The less money in the state, the less money they have to go to war, and the less money they have to fund the road pirates.
Yeah, shit. Yeah, well, they seem to be funding themselves quite well right now with civil asset forfeiture having passed robberies and things like that. As far as the theft of people's property and income, it's fucking crazy. You mentioned your podcast. Tell us about that. Tell us about AnarchoInc.
Yeah, so AnarchoInc really came after the coffee. I needed a way. So the coffee, like I said, I was getting on other people's shows and promoting it and doing what I can. And then I got actually banned from fuckbook advertising there. Our lovely dictator, Mark Zuckerberg, and Facebook. So they banned my advertising for whatever godforsaken reason. So, I had to figure out, again, a way around this obstacle. And so started a lot of people doing podcasts, and I figured to start my own, but with my own spin, which things I'm passionate about, which is basically business and tech. And, it's what I've been doing for the past 10 years, essentially helping people, businesses succeed online through web development and web design and, integrating systems. And the second reason too, is I'm really fascinated, as we were talking in the pre-show, about this idea of cryptocurrency, and how does it all work? What does it mean? What does the future look like? So kind of almost becoming like my own investigative journalist, right? Mm-hmm. Talking to people outside of mainstream media and seeking answers for myself. Not only that, I mean, we have a guest coming on, cross my fingers, hope it doesn't get canceled. Actually, a doctor to come on and talk about the business of vaccines even. Oh, cool. These are all things we see about on Facebook. And I think, as an individual, and I really, the individual is the biggest minority. I think it's important that you do your own individual research and don't come to your own individual conclusions. And people are going to think you're fucking crazy and wear a tinfoil hat. But at this point, fuck it. You got to make your own decisions, man.
Yeah, that's right. It all does come back down to the individual and taking care of yourself and growing yourself and learning. It's cool that you're exploring the topics that you're interested in on your show. That's, in my opinion, and it always comes back to this on our show here at the Dank Pod-Stash, is that you can't change anybody without showing a full, well-rounded self. You got to show people the way that you're finding freedom, because you can scream at people that they're statists or have the wrong hyphen behind anarcho whatever online all day, and it doesn't accomplish anything. It's just, it's not a peaceful way of going about it. It's not a positive way of going about it. And I know I haven't changed my mind from someone, screeching at me and calling me names.
Right. And to your sponsor, Shane Radcliffe, he's doing amazing work. Mm-hmm. I love what Shane's doing. I had him on the show on Anarcho Inc. He's not dealing in hypotheticals or semantics, right? Which, people online, this idea of like, recently I had a conversation about abortion, and then I heard another hypothetical, which is like, if a kid's drowning on private property, do you have the right to go rescue that kid or whatever? These fucking insane questions and semantics. It's like, why the fuck even exercise your mind on these crazy ideas? How about we deal in the right now, and find solutions to suffocate the state? And no other person that I found online, and I'm still, on my journey, but Shane at Liberty Under Attack Publications has got some really great books on that. And, that you can use today, right? Agorism, gardening, right?
Yep.
These are all cryptocurrency, right? Crypto anarchy, right? Solar, right? These are things that you can do today that will suffocate the state 100%. And people think you're crazy, the machine's too big. Well, the same can be said about a lot of parasites, but with the right amount of poison, you can kill those suckers too.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. It seems like more and more people are expanding into the kind of the rural lifestyle to find their freedom, gardening and solar and everything like you mentioned. That's great. But it's possible to do that in the cities as well, if not as easy. Guerrilla gardening's awesome. Heal those food deserts, things like that. Crypto is being accepted widely in a lot of places now. So that's an interesting new development. There's all kinds of shit people can do.
Absolutely, yeah, tons of ideas, and I've recently, everybody loves a good meme, and one that sticks out with me is, good ideas don't require force, right? And so I think the more that we can just kind of push these ideas out there without yelling at each other, the better we'll be off, and don't get caught in the weeds of the semantics about the drowning kid on a private property and how do you rescue them. Right?
Just ridiculous scenarios.
Absolutely.
And it also comes back to another common theme on this show that I've been trying to build is building bridges between people with maybe different economic ideas, philosophical ideas. We all have one major foundation, and that's wanting to live free out from under the state. So it's definitely possible to be allies with everybody who has that and just respect each other. As far as people yelling at each other over and getting caught up in the weeds, I've been seeing a lot of back and forth about the NAP. The NAP is interesting.
Yeah.
The moral agency required to be covered under the non-aggression principle can be taken one way or the other. It's involved in the abortion discussion. It's involved with animals, severely mentally handicapped people, minors, all kinds of stuff. It gets really hairy when my personal philosophy is pretty much just the golden rule, which the NAP came from, is do unto others as you would have done to you, or don't do to others what you wouldn't want them to do to you. It's really that simple. And if you have a problem with things that are outside of the supposed realm of moral agency, if you have an ethical problem with the way animals are treated and whatnot, well, treat them nicely and encourage others to do the same thing. Lead by example. There's all kinds of, like we said, tall weeds in that area. What do you think about that? What's your view on the NAP?
Yeah, so I think you just said it best, which is common sense, right? There's this idea of common sense that we have seemed to lost, I guess, as humans and in political philosophy. I personally hate politics all around, and it's just not. I'm not talking just Democrat, Republican, and let's vote for our next leader. I'm even talking about politics at work. I can't stand. This is another reason I started my business is that corporate America is saturated with politics, and they get into the weeds, and I know I'm going off track here, but to answer your question about the non-aggression principle, it is truly common sense. And I think Matt Kibbe said it best: don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, right? There are very common rules in which I live my life by. I'm no intellectual in any way, whatever. I have my master's, but I didn't study political philosophy. I studied how, computer science, how to build shit online, because that's what the market wants right now.
Yeah.
But don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, right? I also am a believer of stuff like an eye for an eye, right?
Fuck around and find
that
out.
may violate the NAP. Right, exactly. If you're going to hurt somebody, I think you should also be hurt, or something of that nature. And I know that it violates the NAP, but if you're like, here's another one, right? What do you do with pedophiles, right? Put them in a fucking pit and shoot them, right? Like, I'm sorry, like, it's like you have something wrong with you. Maybe there's some correction there, and that's a little much, I know, but maybe, maybe there's some kind of private correction for them, but at the end of the day, if they continue to do it, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they've got to be locked up or thrown away somewhere. It's just, it doesn't fly with me. I think it's disgusting. Right?
That's why free association is such a beautiful thing. There's people that believe they should be rehabilitated. Non-offenders should have a place in society still, all that stuff. And that's not what I choose. I don't want to be around any of that. I haven't seen any, scientific evidence that there's a success rate for rehabilitation. And I choose not to associate with pedophiles or pedophile apologists, anything like that. I'm not even interested in the age of consent conversation because it's not a fucking number that you can pin down. I hate it. There's so much more to it, and I don't want that kind of discussion around me. I don't want people to see that and feel like they're welcome to come in and expand on that. It's not interested, and it's everyone's right to disassociate from whoever they want. So it's absolutely
fully agree with you.
And that goes hand in hand with the golden rule. Don't associate with people that you don't want to associate with, and there's no reason to scream at each other and hurt each other over disagreements. Abortion's another hot topic, another deep topic where people get really heated, and it sometimes goes a little far, like wanting to, execute women who've had abortions or doctors who've performed them and things like that. Right. It's like you can be anti-abortion and not want to kill other people like that. It's a really weird. It's kind of an oxymoron. Like, don't you kill that baby or I'll fucking kill you. That's a little strange.
Agreed. And I think the right to agree to disagree, right, disassociate, and just sometimes walk away, but and again, until your life is threatened, and then you need to take action, but until that point, try to live a peaceful life, right? And live life by the nap. I mean, there's no other golden rule out there that I can think of. And in the same turn of the screw, instead of worrying about these, semantics or, getting into the weeds with abortion or age of consent, why don't you find better use for your time, right? And what better way than to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And that's really, I think I had a friend who used to joke about the protesting and stuff after Donald Trump. It's just like, if these people just had jobs or work to do, it wouldn't be such a problem. Like, and I have no problem with civil disobedience, but when you start to obstruct somebody from making their paycheck or going to work, then it's a problem, right? That's also, not a way of showing civil disobedience. I think there are other ways to do that, like cryptocurrency, great example of civil disobedience.
Yeah, that's a whole big knot to untie with the protesters stopping people from going to work, because I've heard people say, well, they're not, they don't think the way we do anyways. They're just going to work to pay their taxes and whatnot and support the state. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the protesters are anti-government either. It's cutting off someone's livelihood, and then other people bring in the argument there, well, when does change happen? When people get hungry, when people start having real problems, and that could be a part of it. But I don't want to take part in making other innocent people hungry just to start a supposed revolution. That seems like a bad idea. And what has civil disobedience as far as protests going out and screaming and holding signs gotten us thus far? It doesn't seem like much, and you have to pretty much be permitted for that nowadays as well.
Right, which is an irony in itself, right? I think the civil, there was this, back in the JFK time and Martin Luther King. I think through those actions, we got to where we are today. I think we need new tactics of civil disobedience to change the mindset for sure. I don't disagree with those tactics back in those times. are they working today? I don't think so as much, because the state has, you know, now, you know, dogs with pepper spray, and they just, you know, go and attack. But again, I also am drawn to things that are happening is it Hong Kong, with, you know, a million, what is it, the Million March, right? And I can't remember the name of it, but you know, there was huge civil disobedience there because they're fighting for something. There was Venezuela, right? More civil, you know, but because they're hungry, though, right? That's because of socialism, right? So at times it's called for, but I don't see it yet in the U.S. I mean, a lot of podcasts have been on. There's the idea of, you know, you've tickled my collapsitarian bone, right? Are we going to see full out civil war? And, you know, right. I don't know. I don't, again, hypotheticals. You've got to do the right now, and build the relationships you need just in case that does happen. I'm not going to say I don't prepare. Absolutely. I mean, one of the voices I used to listen to before he went way off the wire was Alex Jones. And I love the idea of, and Jesse Ventura and those guys. And I'd like the idea of being prepared. I think you should be prepared. I mean, FEMA says you should have 3 days worth of food and water. And if you don't, then I'm sorry, you're just lost.
Yeah.
You know,
it's yeah. And that's the thing. We're talking about, you know, Alex Jones and stuff, and the way a lot of people view being prepared is, you know, crazy people prepping for the boogaloo or for something, some nuclear war or something. And it's not crazy. To have a stock of food and water and even weapons, allegedly, so that you're prepared for whatever happens. Because up here where I'm at in Washington, there's been massive windstorms in November when it's below freezing and cold at night sometimes, and it knocks out power for 2-3 weeks, and you're screwed if you're not ready to go. These are things that can happen all the time. Tornadoes down in Tornado Alley, you know, massive hailstorms. There's all kinds of stuff that happens naturally that you could be prepared for, besides, you know, tinfoil hat preparedness. And not, you know, Civil War isn't necessarily tinfoil hat, you know, level of conspiracy. Look at 08. Look at how many people were out on their ass with the housing market crash and not prepared. A lot of homelessness resulting from that. No security nets, nothing. Things like that can and do happen, and it's not a bad idea to be prepared. I think 3 days of food and water by FEMA is just so that once you run out, you can head into the damn camps. I would say 30 days at least, or 3 months. You got to be ready to bug in, man.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad you brought up natural disasters. When I first moved out to New Hampshire, and the funny thing, you know, my migration from Rhode Island, New Hampshire wasn't because of the Free State Project, although I discovered them after I moved. It was because I was being taxed to poverty in Rhode Island. I mean, I was paycheck to paycheck, working 3 jobs to ends meet for a postage stamp of a property next to, you know, gangbangers and crackheads, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I mean, I didn't want my children being raised in that sort of environment. Hopefully the suburbs get better, but I mean, from what I'm seeing, they're getting worse. I mean, you can look at California and the homelessness there now. It's just, it's because people no longer know how to survive without government assistance. And it's really unfortunate. And yeah, so when I moved out here, I asked my neighbors, I said, how long have you ever been out without power? They once had an ice storm here in New Hampshire. They were out power for 2 weeks. First thing I did was went out and, got some money and saved up for a generator, backup generator, and, a few 10 gallons of gas. And people are like, why do you keep so much gas around? It's just like to run the generator, right? And then there was even things, I forget the name of the contraption, but the idea of, like, I think it's like a fumigator or something where you can actually burn wood that then creates, you can be used as gas in the generator. I was just reading things like that. You know, when you start talking about those things in the office, people think you're nuts, but when we had power without 2 days, we had our stove, refrigerator, and hot water and toilets running. So
Yep.
I'd rather live that way than without it.
Absolutely.
And so absolutely.
Yeah. And it's another path to self-sufficiency, because when you have those things happen and you realize you can do it yourself, it's empowering. I've had the same thing happen. Lost power this winter. I think it was around 13 degrees, probably lower, blizzard conditions, nothing. And I don't have a wood-burning stove at this point, unfortunately, but I had a generator and a heater. And I was able to get through it up here, no problem. You don't need the government, obviously, to do that. You don't need someone knocking on your door with that most nerve-wracking phrase ever, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, we can all talk. I mean, the example there is Katrina. I mean, look at that. I mean, and it's just, so that's, for me, that's when I really kind of started taking, being prepared a little bit more serious. Everything from, like you said, 30 days of non-perishable food to having, collecting rainwater, to gardening, to even keeping just a small bug out bag in the back of the backpack in case I need to, hike it home.
Yep.
Right. And yeah, wink, wink, the weapons too. Right.
Gonna have to go diving from that boat accident if you need those in the Boogaloo, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, these are all things to consider when the idea of liberty, freedom, individualism, right, and suffocating the state. Yeah, I mean, I recommend everybody, start a side hustle, find your niche, scratch the itch, as my friend Kevin Michael Gary says.
Nice.
Create that FU money, right? Go out there, find something that you're good at, and don't think any idea is absurd. I thought the idea of calling it AnarchoCoffe, no one would buy it. And people, I think because I'm being myself, people like the idea, and so it's really done well. It's helped me, put money back in the liberty movement. It's also helping me get out of debt. So, just don't ever think any idea is absurd. The idea is try it and go for it. It could be as crazy as starting, an ice fishing podcast about libertarianism. You don't know. I mean, I just talked to the guys from Anarchy. They're doing Anarchy and wine, and then they started an event called Childeberg, right? All great things, I think it'll take more ideas like that to spread the message.
Yeah,
for sure, man.
I'm of the mindset we need to saturate the market with as many either Anarchy branded, businesses and podcasts, because the more we have, the more we grow, the more people are able to see it. Get on every social media network you can, the alternative ones, the mainstream ones, whatever. And if you have an idea for a podcast, fucking start it. Fucking start a business. It's just market saturation. And if you're, doing what you do best and trying to grow as a person, people are going to see that and be like, damn, that dude's got his shit together. Just like we were talking about before. This is a good idea. Maybe this can work. I wanted to go loop back real quick to something you mentioned about why you left kind of the inner city kind of areas, the city and whatnot. In that case, there's a lot of times when the state is suffocating itself, where they just dogpile on these communities and make it worse and worse for them until it becomes so dangerous they can't be there anymore. Like no police in the areas of Detroit where the Detroit Threat Management Center is. And I know I talk about them a lot, but that's an opportunity to jump in and show a better model for services outside of the state. Even guerrilla gardening, people go into areas where it's really bad and help people grow their own food and become more sufficient. It's an opportunity to jump in if that's what you want to do, if you want to stay in the city. And I definitely encourage people to do that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not saying, and I'm glad you brought that up. I'm not saying you have to escape the city. It was, we left just, with the kids, and it just, we wanted more house, and the way to get more house was to move to the country for sure. If you can make an impact in your city, more power to you. I mean, the cities are going to need a lot of work, and a good example, the threat management that we all know so well. And if you haven't, I mean, just go listen to Mance's podcast on them. They've done some great things. Another example, I was at the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, and Mance did a great talk on that, on alternatives to, kind of being your own police. He even mentioned, and I forget the name, but inside of the Jewish communities in downtown New York, my understanding is that they have their own ways of dealing with the law. And sometimes the police, the actual, New York state police can't get into those areas because of the Jewish community, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'm not saying you have to go out and start your own religion, but, there are ways to provide security. Actually, another great example, Pork Fest. No local law enforcement, no state police. The Free State Project and the creators of Pork Fest were able to provide their own security, and there was over 1,000 people on the campground. Nobody was injured, nobody was hurt, nothing happened. It was beautiful. And they had their own security, which they called the Pork Rangers, right? And they had their kind of like security vests, and you could just go up to them and talk to them like, hey, I give you an example. I actually forgot my wristband the first day I showed up, and I flagged down Roger Paxton, who I knew. And I was like, hey man, I forgot my wristband. He grabbed the head of security. He got my wristband for me and got me into the show. There was no, I wasn't upset. I didn't have to run back to the hotel. They were able to help me out, and everybody was kind. And it's the other thing too. I want to kind of paint the picture. These guys are not like strapped with AK-47s or anything. They're just normal people with a couple of walkie-talkies. They could have been concealed carry. I don't know. I didn't want to ask. They were just there to kind of make sure everybody was having a good time, right? And everybody had a great time at Pork Fest, right? And there's a decentralized kind of not decentralized, but a centralized way, internally, a community, right, of people having Pork Fest. And it was awesome. It was a beautiful thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Imagine that, people treating each other respectfully, and it works out just fine, and it does always come back to communities. As I think it's a picture of people marching with a banner that says something to the effect of "strong communities make police obsolete," something like that. I love that.
I've seen that one. I think I might have posted. I love that one. Yeah.
Yep. You can see it in action everywhere. It's amazing. And that's part of suffocating the state too.
Yep.
Absolutely, part of suffocating the state is building your community wherever you are. We can do these things
100%.
that are better than how the state does them. We don't have to shoot people and their dogs on a wellness check, anything like that. It's there's the Domino's is fucking filling potholes. It's not hard to fill a pothole. You live on a dirt road. You said I live on a dirt road. The farmer down the way grades our road. People chip in, or he just grades it himself because he's got trucks coming in for his haul. So it's absolutely possible. And it's just finding the way to get that message out there and show people. And one of the most important steps after, I believe, is defending it from the state. When the state says, oh, you guys are acting a little too freely, we might need to step in and get our cut. It's time to repel them via, the Bundy Ranch standoff, that kind of thing. And we need to really get together and be willing to do that because, fuck around and find out. Golden rule, NAP, whatever you want. There's no need to necessarily initiate aggression, although some people believe that once a cop, takes that oath, they're initiating aggression, and which is not unreasonable, but it's tactically unsound to be going out and randomly shooting at cops. It's not going to get you anywhere. Pick your fights,
No, right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I still I recently did a podcast with Patrick from Liberty Weekly, and he recently became a father, and there was the question that came up of when do you kind of draw the line, right? Fighting for what you believe in. And sometimes as a father, you don't have the luxury of always fighting for your liberties, and sometimes you have to, right? And absolutely, whenever I'm pulled over or interact with the police, I comply just because I need to provide for my family, right? I would love to be that guy that says, I'm not answering any questions today, right? I've seen those videos, and I applaud those people that have the balls to do that. I unfortunately, haven't come to that yet, because I'd like to come home to my children, so I know that they are, I can provide for them, as I am, the breadwinner for my family. So I haven't gotten there yet, but maybe one day I will, and I hope not to. I hope one day we have private police, and it's private police that I maybe crowdfunded or something, right? It's somebody I was willing to pay for, right?
Sure.
So
yeah, and it's a trade-off. It's all about tactics, because getting yourself killed or leaving your family destitute isn't leaving any room for you to improve your lives, their lives, or the lives of the people around you either. And having taken that risk when I had to travel through Border Patrol checkpoints in the States, not even at the actual border, twice daily for work, taking the I don't answer questions, you can't search my shit route. They'll just pull a gun on you until you let them. So cops don't always do that. Sometimes you can get away with cops, right. But Border Patrol, and they'd call DPS, and I think I've told the story on the show before, but they dragged a preacher out of his car and had to get stitches all over his body from the glass and stuff, because he was refusing. He was recording. So you got to pick your battles. And when those things happen, it's good if you're filming, of course, too, because it gets the situation out there. It shows what scumbags they actually are. But it's definitely a risk. It's definitely a risk. I was having a conversation with Jeremy Harding of the Weekly Hellscape, I think Friday, about how I want to do more. I want to really put my money where my mouth is. And we kind of came back to the same conclusions that we're talking about now. It's like, you can be a martyr. You can, choose bad tactics and stop your journey right there. Or you can do your best and try to move forward. It's really, you got to weigh, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, I think that's the conversation I also have been having a lot with everybody offline on my podcast, which is, because people will, and, John Odermatt from Lions of Liberty is like, people are going to do that. That's what people do. They're going to talk. They're going to criticize you, right? And so what can you do more as an anarchist or libertarian? And I think, I think saturating the market with ideas is a good one. What else can you do? And those are conversations I'm also having, right? I've read tons of stories. I'm always concerned. I love the idea of a well-regulated militia, but the second you start talking about that, look at the story of Schaefer Cox, if you haven't already, right? I think he was in Alaska, right? In jail, right? Ross Allberg, another one, right? Created a website to privately exchange goods. Now he's being painted as a kingpin, and the idea of he was selling, hitman and drugs online or whatever, right? Which wasn't even the case if you ever met Lynn. That story's deep. I'm hoping one day to have Lynn on my show. I know it's been done hundreds of times, but I'd love to, just do it your own way, whatever, and it helps you grow as an individual, to talking to these people and getting involved in the community for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where we're at, man, as a country. I don't, it's like we've got the 3%ers, right? And we've got those guys in the militias, but it's like,
if we have them,
yes, some of them, if we have them, right? And some of them also believe in, back the blue and, and support the troops, which, it's not that I want to disrespect people who have served this country. Thank you. But, you're just feeding the military industrial complex, right? It's tough. It's a tough, I guess, quote unquote, flying this flag or believing in these ideas. It's a hard line for sure, 100%. But we've got to do something.
Well, it is a hard one because you say you don't want to disrespect those people, and there's other people who are willing to shit on cops and military all day long. And I think the idea that Robert Higgs puts out, that there's no such thing as a good cop, I think that also applies to military. And when you analyze that a little more deeply, what you realize is that there's no such thing as a good cop, the job of a cop. There's no such thing as a good soldier, good military, the job of military. I don't think all of those people are completely lost. I will not treat them any better than they treat other people as long as they're in that position. I'm against that and them as long as they're there. But look at all the former military that are anarchists and even libertarians now. There's people that see a problem and want to do something about it, want to fix it. And there are people who are in whatever way they can. I really like Konkin's idea of, restoring what you've wronged rather than being punished. Because what does punishment do? It's not restoring the broken party, the violated party. I think a lot of people, after they realize what the hell exactly being a cop or a soldier is, it'd be excellent to see them make reparations to the people and the families they've broken apart. That's a big step to put your money where your mouth is. And kind of circling back to suffocating the state and creating our freedom, Konkin, once again, like that. This is why this is an agorist podcast, because I like a lot of stuff that Konkin put out there. But the pockets of freedom, the pockets of anarchy, the pockets of agorism, everything that we have now, we want to expand those and make it so that we're not encompassed by the state or statism, anything like that. Pockets of statism surrounded by freedom, because I'm not under the illusion that it's all ever going to go away. There's going to be people who want it, but making them smaller so that they can't hurt you, growing the communities, making them obsolete. That's how you suffocate the state. You make it smaller and smaller.
Yeah. And I'm glad you called me out on that. I mean, I think it's like this indoctrination where I've always been taught to like respect the troops, and I've listened to Larkin Rose's speech on fuck the troops, and when I listened to that, I resonated with it. I'm not gonna lie. It's just like I there's like empathy for me still, for I don't know why. Maybe it's just this. It's a hard, like, I think Shane said this. It's very hard to give up all these ideas that you've been indoctrinated with, and it is. It's I'd love to say fuck the troops and in many ways, but at the same turn of the screw, I have this internal battle. It's like, wow, these guys. I get it. They took an oath and they went to battle and stuff, but it's I don't know, man. This is me growing as an individual, right? This is as real as it gets right now, right? For me, you've always been brought up to respect those guys, and at the same, it's like, well, they're also going. Some of them are going across, like you said, that maybe there's no good soldiers, maybe there are, right? But they're also going across, overseas and fucking shit up, man, fucking other people's homes up, and it's disgusting, some of the videos that we've seen, right? Thanks to WikiLeaks, right? So I hate it, man. It really hits me.
It's a vicious circle, man. It's a vicious circle, the way that they go over there to counter terrorism that was created by the people who are giving them their orders, and it's hard to find a way out. And if you listen to a lot of them, they're helping people in certain ways, and then you got to think, well, why do these people need to be helped? Why do they need to have ISIS or whatever the fuck, terrorist group of the day is over there hurting them? Why do they need help getting them out? And it's because of things that, U.S. foreign policy and whatever interests that the U.S. has over there have created. And so it's hard to find the answer. It's hard to find the balance on whether, is all military bad? Are all people in the military bad? I don't think that all people in there are bad. I think they're selling out their principles and their ethics to be a part of that. But then you see, like I said, saving families from those things happening, and then you see the families and people over there thanking them for doing what they're doing. Or like you said, you see the opposite of that. You see people killing children, rapes and just outright murder under that same flag.
Right.
It's a hard thing, and I don't know what the fuck to do about that. Obviously, I'm not calling the shots. I mean, something I've heard is just pull out, get everybody out of there. And it's like, well, fuck, if that happens, then they're just going to be overrun by these groups of terrorists and religious extremists, and it's like, well, maybe that's something they need to fight on their own, but some responsibility lies on the people who created that. And who knows if they're going to make the right decision to stop it or keep people over there guarding poppy fields and selling weapons to them. It's a whole convoluted, vicious cycle of, U.S. imperialism and greed, among other things, just evil.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is where I think cryptocurrency helps. And I can just tell a story of a gentleman I talked to in Africa, Sierra Leone, Africa. Because of, the, corrupt politicians and even the banks in Africa, he was saying he was able to get in contact with an American citizen who helped him start some nonprofits and organizations that accept crypto. And it's way better than Western Union or any sort of government-run bank. And so, it's almost, maybe, through those actions of cryptocurrency, people can bring liberty to those places in the Middle East, right, and start businesses and again suffocate whatever religious extreme is going on, right? Fight those things with crypto, right? Because for me, like I said, if someone told me, hey, there's this Middle Eastern libertarian individual who needs a donation, right? You did it a while back, had a friend, ran into trouble, give me some advertising. And I was like, I've got some extra money from AnarchoCoffe. I'm going to put it here, right? So maybe it's monetary. We help out monetarily, right? Through crypto, because it can't be tracked, right? And it's easy to transfer to an address, right? So who knows, man? Maybe but we don't know because the government's got so much control in the Middle East, right? And got to make those connections for sure.
Well, that's definitely a part of it, funding the people who are fighting for their lives against whatever evil is coming after them. They need guns too. They need weapons. They need food. They need clean water if they're going to make that fight happen. And at a point of building bridges, I've seen pictures and articles of Antifa from different countries who have gone over there and joined militia groups and protect other people from these extremists and terrorists, whatever. They're going over there and doing it. I mean, there's also people from the other side. I can't remember what group it was out of somewhere in Northern Europe, but I don't know if they are or not because I don't remember the group name, but ethno-nationalists, whatever, that went over there to do the same thing. There's tons of different ways, whether it's boots on the ground, getting them crypto, whatever, to help. And once again, don't need the state to do it, because look at what it just went through, all the convoluted bullshit of having the state involved there. There's a cleaner way to do it.
Right.
It's fucking crazy. But as far as crypto, we were talking a little bit in the pre-show there about, why start all these different coins? Why is your coin better and whatnot? And we wanted to jump into that a bit.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, for me, I'm still diving into that. I'm trying to talk to people in the industries who have cryptocurrencies company. I think it's episode 30 coming out next week. We had Horizon.global on. They own Zencash. I didn't get to, maybe I was a little bit more reserved or conservative with my questions. I didn't get to ask that question, but here's what did happen. I made a new friend, essentially. With one of the co-founders and persons involved in that project, and that's something I will ask him. And those are questions I'm starting to ask. It's like, why so many coins, but it's the same idea of why so many different paper towels, right? That's the way I kind of look at it. You go to your local grocery store and there are 10 different brands of paper towel.
Sure.
It's the free market, right? And you choose which one you want to support. Again, put your money where your mouth is. And I think Vin Armani, who is somebody I listen to in the crypto space a lot, and somebody I've met personally, he says it's kind of believing in that community. You know, maybe you're part of the Horizon.global community in Zencash. Maybe you're part of Bitcoin Cash. Maybe you're part of the Bitcoin community, right? So it's the idea of having your own currency in that community that you believe in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also see it as a way for a new investing revolution. I think the New York Stock Exchange and stocks and bonds are kind of a dying, financial system. So it's a volatile, a very volatile market, but I think it's a market that you can win some money in. A good example is recently in the past, 6 months, Bitcoin was $3,000 at the beginning of the year, and it went up to 13 recently.
Mm-hmm.
Now, had you invested, if you had $3,000 to invest and you waited and you cashed out at 13, you would have been, approximately $10,000 richer than you were.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's new markets to invest in as well. Again, I'm no crypto expert, something I'm still listening to the experts about, whoever those experts make sense to me, right? And reading about. I definitely 100% love the idea. And we accept cryptocurrency on AnarchoCBD and on AnarchoCoffe.com. And I would, if you told me last year, hey, would you start a coffee business accepting crypto, and you think somebody would do it, I would say no. But you know what? Again, balls to the walls. I did it, and people are buying coffee with crypto.
Hell yeah.
For whatever reason, I don't know, but they want to be able to do those transactions without the government knowing. And not only that, I've even started doing freelance work, building websites for people with crypto, just another way to earn money for me. And so I love it. I think the future for this type of technology is bright. And it's not just the currencies, it's the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can finally have transparency in voting. Who knows, man? Who fucking knows? I couldn't tell you. I think we're going to need new tech, and this is a great tech to be a part of. It's just like gold.
Yeah.
We have your gold, silver bugs. I still believe in that stuff. I've got some in the gun safe, right? I've still got my gold and silver, and people think I'm crazy for keeping precious metals, but I like the idea of having them just in case, the internet's not around or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So again, another way of prepping.
Yeah, that's not crazy at all.
Always, right?
Diversify.
Put your eggs in. Yep, put your eggs in many baskets for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of coins that kind of start up as, someone's money making scheme. They're like, I can make a buck if I make this coin. But I think there's also a lot of trying to adopt the newest tech involved with it, make exchanges faster, make it easier. And then I really like the I just totally lost the word, but the more anonymous coins, the privacy coins, where you don't have to link up your personal information to them. I'll buy those all day. If I'm like, Monero's awesome, and whoever else is coming up with that stuff, that's where I want to be. That's the way you don't get tracked. You don't get capital gains taxed and all that kind of shit.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. So Horizon's a great one. Zencash. They're working on a new protocol. I forget the name of it. So that's the idea, that it's even more secure.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot the name of the protocol, but I do remember I was prepping for a podcast today with a cryptocurrency called Beam, and the idea of Beam is it's using this protocol called Mimblewimble, which comes from Harry Potter's the Harry Potter books. And the idea, I guess it's Mimblewimble, is a spell that you would cast on your friend or opponent if you don't want them to talk. So it kind of keeps them from talking, this magic. So there are these new protocols that people can look up. And the only reason I knew this was because I did a search. And by the way, not a search on Google, but a search on DuckDuckGo, right? So use other browsers, use other, another browser I like to use is Brave.
Yep.
It actually pays you crypto called BAT. And so these are technologies I highly recommend people get involved with. It's I'm sure you can remember the days of Napster, right? When we were peer-to-peer downloading music and sharing music from each other's. And that's what I think that's where this is getting back to. There are a lot of the techs that does this. Horizon.global has something similar where it's an app that you download on your Windows or Mac machine, and you can share files anonymously, right? Peer to peer. So really cool stuff. I would highly people, don't stick your head in the sand. Go check it out. It's really a lot of great tech out there, and it's just, you got to expand your mind. Absolutely.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And speaking of all the different altcoins and alt browsers and all that stuff, I got to get you hooked up with Jeremy Harding from the Weekly Hellscape, because he is into like every single one of them. Got a ton of knowledge on it. He'd be a great guest for your show talking about that stuff. He's been on the show a few times here. You'd love it.
Yeah, I follow him.
Nice.
Yeah, I gotta get him on, man, for sure. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, that's we're coming up to about an hour, man. That's my usual cutoff time.
Yeah.
What kind of parting thoughts do you have for us?
My parting thoughts are always, basically go check out everything I'm doing at AnarchoInc.com. Subscribe, listen, tell me what I'm open to suggestions. Always shoot me an email at AnarchoInc@gmail.com, AnarchoCoffe.com. Actually, for your listeners today, we're going to do Dank 10 for 10% off their first order. Sweet. At AnarchoCoffe.com. Check out AnarchoCBD.com for all your great CBD products. And, my parting thoughts are always peace, love, and anarchy, brother.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, we'll put that code in the announcement as well. Definitely peace, love, anarchy. That's the way to go. Real quick, episode 40 coming up on the 7th of July. We have an awesome guest coming up, Lily Forrester. So stay tuned for that one. Get your questions in. If you have any questions for Lily, anything you want to know, and we'll try to bring you the best show there. And this has been an amazing show, man. Awesome conversation, vibing back and forth. Love it. We'll definitely have to do it again, because I feel like we barely scratched the surface of everything we could talk about.
For sure, brother.
Cool. All right.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody, we'll catch you next time.